My favorite systems are the ones that just work together. In hospitality, you've got reservations, service, payments, rotas, stock, reporting, and when none of them talk to each other, things get messy fast. Square's restaurant point of sale helps connect front and back of house, and it integrates with over 100 hospitality tools, including platforms like OpenTable, Tenzo, and Stampede. Less time chasing information, more time creating great experiences for your guests. Square does the Square stuff, so you don't have to. They're offering up to £4,000 in free hardware to eligible businesses to get you started. Head to square.com to learn more. Restaurants are where life happens. First dates, birthdays, breakups, celebrations, the places we go to feel something. But behind every busy dining room is another story entirely. Over the last few months, I've been traveling across the UK, meeting some of the most exciting people in hospitality, the people holding this industry together. And honestly, I found myself asking the same question over again. How the hell do you actually stay open? Right now, hospitality is hard, margins are tight, everyone's burnt out, and yet somehow people keep showing up. In this series, we're sitting down with some of the country's most loved restaurants to talk about what it really takes. The good bits, the chaos, the money, the pressure, the passion, and why, despite everything, they still wouldn't do anything else. I'm Natalia Ribbe, and this is the Staying Open podcast for restaurant owners, restaurant lovers, and everyone in between. Today on Staying Open, I'm pretty excited about this podcast just because he's really fun to hang out with, but we are in Canary Wharf at one of many Hawksmoors, and I'm joined by Will Beckett, who is a co-founder of Hawksmoor, who turns 20 this year, which is absolutely mental. So, welcome to the podcast, Will Beckett.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule, you international restaurateur that you are.
That's right. I'm just buzzing around constantly.
You are,
an
aren't
international
you?
restaurateur. Yeah.
You are. How do you, seriously, how do you manage that? Because you have restaurants in New York, Chicago, Dublin, all over the UK.
Yeah. Building in Boston at the moment.
You're building in Boston? Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to have to get to that. I love Boston.
It's cool, isn't it?
It's so American.
It is so American, quintessentially American.
It's really adorable. Okay, well, before we dive straight into how you've built this empire, zipping around, I want to take it back because obviously I know your background, but not everyone who is listening will know your background. So you can give us just a little brief synopsis. Young Will Beckett, how did you come into this wonderful world of hospitality?
Well, I grew up in a food and drink family. So my mum, until fairly recently, was the wine columnist for The Guardian. She's a food and drink journalist, Fiona Beckett. So when I kind of grew up, there was a lot of food and booze around the house. My stepdad cooked a lot. And that was just quite a kind of normal part of growing up for me. And she would push me into restaurants, and if we'd go into stuff, she'd always make me, okay, try something you've never had before. What do you think of the restaurant? We'd do people watching, that people over there, what are they here for? What are they doing? It was a thing for me growing up. And I grew up 2 roads away from my best mate, Hugh, who's the other co-founder of Hawksmoor. And he grew up in a food and drink family. So his parents had have this little kind of cafe that was doing kind of sustainable and organic before those words became kind of popular. And so, we grew up around food and drink, and we grew up in each other's pockets and in and out of each other's houses. So kind of that was our childhood.
And I mean, not to age you, but this is what are we talking? Where are we, in the 90s? I just want to give people an idea.
How far back can we go? Is it the 90s, Will? What was happening in the 90s? Did you have televisions?
But what the food scene was like then. Obviously, your mom's taking you to these restaurants, but historically... Britain wasn't really, renowned for its cuisine.
Right, New Jersey.
Yeah. Famous.
And, what period is this? So I'm 48 and 50 weeks or something. And we...
Did you just have a birthday?
No, I'm just about to have a birthday.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
In a couple of weeks.
You're not going to tell me when?
Yes, 4th of June.
It's the 4th of June. It's got a Gemini on our hands, people.
Duplicitous. So yeah, like, I don't know. So what age is this? Let's say I'm about 15, early 90s or something. So we'd have gone to like, we went to like a Bruno Lubbe restaurant. We kind of do all sorts of stuff. We go to like a little local thing. So I grew up in St Albans. We go to a little independent restaurant in St Albans, or like very occasionally, if she had work there, she'd drag me along with her, and I'd go to like the Waterside Inn in Bray. I remember that. I remember Michel Roux Senior walking my mum through the kitchen of the Waterside Inn in Bray,
which still is there, stands the test of time.
So there was a lot of stuff, but it was kind of, it was different to now. There was a lot more kind of fine dining was kind of where you went to high-end restaurants, or there was kind of some posh French, posh Italian, but that kind of wave of chef or restaurateur led kind of more modern restaurants, I don't think started until maybe like the 2010s or something as a kind of big thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So you and Hugh, busy mates.
Yeah.
Popping around London, going to restaurants.
Yeah. And then, so like, we had an idea that we wanted to get into food and drink, but more sensible people in our lives, like our fathers, suggested that we go and get real jobs.
Can we talk about that just for a minute? Because actually, Sue Sethi mentioned that in a Ladies of Restaurants Roadshow we did. She was saying how she might not necessarily encourage her kids to work in hospitality. She'd want them to do it as a job temporarily, but maybe not pursue a career. And I feel like hospitality does get this very bad rap of being a sustainable career path, whether you're opening a business or you're actually working in it. And I feel from the outside, that Hawksmoor has completely, put that to bed. Like, you guys have, Drew's worked for you for 16 years.
Yeah, Drew's the GM here, 16 years. Lots of people have been working for us for many, many, many years, or have worked for us for a long time and gone off and done great things in the industry. And I don't know, we've definitely tried to play our part in breaking that down a bit, making hospitality feel like a career. I really clearly remember we opened Hawksmoor Guildhall in 2011. Hawksmoor Guildhall is like, it's 180 seats in the middle of the city, big restaurant. And we had this Scottish, assistant restaurant manager or something. And he was with us for about a year, and he came and he said, I'm leaving, actually. I'm going to go to Australia for get a kind of, a 2-year visa to go and work in Australia. And he said, but I just wanted to say thank you because, I've worked in hospitality for like 5, 6, 7 years, and I really, really love it. But for 5, 6, 7 years, my parents have always been, when is this phase going to end and you're going to start getting a real job? Until I got this job. And then they walked in, saw the restaurant and like heard about the company and kind of, okay, I get it now. You can have, a proper career in this industry. So he's like, this is just what I do now. So yeah, I hope we have. Would I recommend my kids do it? I mean, to be honest with you, if they wanted to do it, there's great careers here. I think it's an industry that is hard to make into a sustainable career unless you love the industry. Because it's difficult, right? We both know, you work nights, you work weekends. When you're in your 20s and you're working nights and weekends, you're giving up some other stuff to do that. It's also hard work. It's owning a restaurant, as I have heard you say many times, is intense and full on. But if you love it, it's all worth it. And I think there are a lot of, it's one of those industries that a lot of people seem to fall in love with.
Yeah, and I've been really struggling with this like work-life balance because I think I love it so much. It's like an obsession. And I'm obsessed with restaurants and I'm obsessed with working. Like, how's that going for you? Yeah, great. Just keep doing more things. But then I don't want to feel guilty about it. Like, I love my job. Like, I love working. And I have tried to work a little bit less this year, very unsuccessfully. But like, why do I have to feel guilty about it? Like, yeah, it is a tough, amazing, hard industry, but I love it. Like,
yeah, I think I always think that I like the idea of kind of like ballpark doing the right thing. Someone said that to me about parenting. It was like, as long as you're ballpark being a good parent, just spend way less time worrying about it. And I found that really liberating as a parent to be like, oh yeah, of course I'm like ballpark a good dad. That's fine. Don't spend any time worrying about like, oh my God, could I be doing 100 things better? If you're obsessed with the work-life balance and stuff and you really want to work and you enjoy it, you're obsessed with restaurants, as long as it's ballpark healthy, So I think it's fine. There's no problem whatsoever, right? But we also know that it can sometimes tip into, this is not good for me at the moment. And you have to notice that and kind of draw back from it a little bit, which when it's yours and it's your business and your responsibility is hard.
Very.
Yeah. Very.
Very.
Yeah.
But also I have one small independent restaurant. You have several. We're going to jump around a little bit, and I do want to talk about people because it is at the core of Hawksmoor, and I think that's why you guys have done so well. But I want to come back to you and Hugh, because Hawksmoor was not your first venture, was it?
No, so when we were 26, like we tried these real jobs and we'd gone to university. And
What was the real job?
Hugh, well, we both went to university. Hugh got a job in the press office at the alternative investment market at the London Stock Exchange. I mean, you were laughing because you've met Hugh and it's almost impossible to imagine that
Yes.
might be his job. And at the same time, because he really liked restaurants, he worked incredibly in the London Stock Exchange and this thing. And then at night, he'd go to, do you remember Bar Kick in Shoreditch with like all the
Yes.
football tables? He worked there. So he worked in Bar Kick, like in the kitchen, helping out, like trying to learn about restaurants. And then he was so tired from trying to work, whatever it was, 8 till 5 in one job and 5 till 1 in another job, that he would go and sleep like in the stationery cupboards at the Stock Exchange to try and cope with doing both things. Anyway.
He was really tall as well.
He's really tall. He's
So-
really tall. He doesn't fit naturally in a small
No.
cupboard. I've lost my train of thought there. But so he was doing that, and we wanted to get. And my real job, I sort of bounced around. Like I did some teaching. I tried to cold call, sell advertising for a little bit. I was really bad at that. Anyway, and then when we were 26, we opened this little bar in Shoreditch, and we sort of maxed out credit cards and borrowed money whenever we could, and built as much of it ourselves. Actually, you can still, it's now like a
What is it
Japanese
now?
audio bar, just at the top of Brick Lane on Redchurch Street. It just changed, but the floor is still the stripped ply that I stayed up until like 3 a.m. one night, like painting, while like, because you weren't allowed to, the shutters were down, getting increasingly high on paint fumes. It's still that floor there. So we did a lot of it ourselves. So we had that, we had a little bar,
What was it called?
the Red Church, because it was on Redchurch Street,
The Red Church. When did you open that?
2003.
Okay, and you had it until...
2008 or something.
Okay.
But like it was the Red
going.
Church until like,
I was going to say,
2 years
I'm
ago.
pretty sure I went there.
yeah, sticky.
Yes.
Sticky late night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it near that pizza place? No, burger place, Dumbo. There?
I mean, not
You don't go
at
to
the
Shoreditch
time.
very often,
At the
do you?
time, it wasn't next to like
Anything.
a down under Manhattan Bridge overpass like burger thing. It was opposite the public toilet. And the first day that we arrived with our builders on the new thing, which they kept on calling like a wine bar, it was a wine bar. There was a junkie like spread eagle out of the half in, half out of this toilet with needles still in their arm, and the builder's like, "Sorry, what are you doing here? You're going to build it here." So like Shoreditch, the East End was a bit different then.
And like from that, I feel like people should hear that sometimes you take a risk on a neighborhood or in an area because you can see potential. I mean, you look at that area now, it's
Yeah. I mean,
doesn't always pay off maybe, but
I think it's one of those things when you get started, when you look back at stuff when you get started, you could gloss over it, right? And you could say, well, we saw an opportunity in an area and it was on the way up and whatever. That's not true. We just lived near there. And Hugh found an old, like a place for sale called Bengal Fried Chicken. And sort of Shoreditch was kind of becoming a thing, I guess. But it wasn't like, there weren't like a series of good decisions based on clever rationale. It was just two 26-year-old guys who'd scraped together enough money to open a little bar doing it. And in a way, I often think like that's kind of the tragedy of now. Like, we opened a bar for almost no money. And it survived for a number of years, making no money because rent was so small. We got paid, like my wife says when she met me, which was 2005, like 2 years later, I said I earned 16 grand a year. She said, no, you earned 12 grand a year. Like, we lived like that. We lived in a shared flat above the train station in Whitechapel, where like every single time a train went past, which is a lot, like the whole building shook. But we were 26, and that was, I mean, it was brilliant. But the bar was not brilliant. It was fun. Like, it was fun to go, but it was a terrible business and a terrible idea. But
was
also,
it just like a
also
bar?
great.
Like, did it have like a sort of unique selling point to it, or
No, it was just like a cool neighborhood bar. We did like good sandwiches and salads and stuff during the day, and it turned into like kind of like a cocktail bar, come DJ bar later in the evening. It was really, really fun. And every Friday and Saturday, it'd be absolutely heaving with people, to the point, this sounds revolting now, where like the condensation and sweat would drip down off the ceiling.
I love that.
And it was amazing.
What a time to be alive.
But terrible. Every now and then I run into people in the industry who are like, oh my God, I used to come to the Red Church 20 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, it was ridiculous. They've always got kind of stories about things that they did there.
But I think that's the beauty of restaurants. Like, they're these, epicenters of communities and nightlife and memories and moments of time.
Yeah.
Like, that was a moment in Shoreditch. Like, and we're important. We're important to society.
No, I mean, I definitely think that's true. I mean, I obviously, like you, am a bit of a restaurant romantic. I love restaurants. I love walking into restaurants. I love the smell of restaurants. I love all of it.
The noises.
The noise of everything. I like the weird people that work in restaurants. I love all of the things. And you're right, like for some of us, more than just the number of people who really, really love them, there are kind of like significant moments and places in your lives that you connect with the bars, the restaurants, and the experiences that you have in them. I think that's magic.
They are magic.
Yeah.
Okay, so Red Church is super fun and vibey.
Yep.
Not making any money.
No.
Like, washing its face. Turning a little profit?
No, but not losing so much money that the whole thing was a disaster. That sort of stage that you can get in where you could sort of cover it by kind of like holding on to the VAT for a little bit longer and paying. Are you familiar with that move? No, you're not, are you?
I am extremely familiar with that. I would love if people were more open about VAT struggles. As in, like, we know that it's a struggle, but like, how do you manage it?
Just in case you don't know, obviously, if not obviously, but when you charge money for anything, you charge VAT, and that percentage of VAT, 20%, you hold it over, and then once a quarter, you give it to the taxman. But
well, you're supposed to give it to the taxman.
If your end of quarter is the 31st of December, you don't have to give it to the taxman till the 31st of March. So you get this little kind of build-up of VAT cash that sometimes you can just like, okay, I'm just going to take a little bit out of that and just somehow this is miraculously going to work. And you can kind of Ponzi scheme it for a while until you really, really can't anymore, and it's a problem. Mm-hmm. Again, your face says that may have happened. We did that, yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on VAT? Like, do you really think the government will ever listen to us and cut it to 10%?
No.
And do you really think that it is impactful to restaurant businesses?
Well, I mean, it is. The best thing that I ever heard as a counter-argument to it was from, at the time, the chief advisor to Rishi Sunak when he was treasurer. He said, of course it will help you. Of course it will. But in the long term, this is what will happen. Restaurants will become more profitable. Then more people will open restaurants because they're so profitable. The supply and demand dynamics will change till you're back to the exact level of profitability you're at now. And then we'll probably put VAT up at some point again in the future, at which point loads of your restaurants will become unviable. It will only help some of you for a short period of time. And we're not really about trying to help some people for a short period of time. And I didn't have a clever answer to that.
No, I don't even have a rebuttal
I'm just going to
that.
stay quiet for a little bit now, while someone with like a PhD in economics tells me why it's not a great idea.
I mean, the state of restaurants right now, it's pretty dire out there. But I feel like that's more to do with the cost of living crisis than it necessarily is about VAT.
I don't know. But also, I hate the dire state of restaurants narrative.
Yeah,
I
it's
just find
too
it
much.
like,
I'm just like, can we just talk about the good stuff?
Yeah, let's just talk about food and nice people and giving people a good time.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that more.
Okay.
So Red Church closes. You have to close it. Or were you forced to close it? Or
No, someone foolishly agreed to buy it. So anyway, so we had that. We had the building opposite that, which was called Green and Red, which I think, entirely objectively, of course, was like a restaurant ahead of its time. It was like really good food from Jalisco in Mexico. We had like a Jaliscan chef there, and we had all this incredible like 100% agave tequila, and it was mad. There was like Mexican skulls everywhere. It was really, really fun, but also really, really mismanaged. And that was cool. Like we managed to borrow money from a bank to do that, and we also borrowed money from a bank to do a pub in Islington called the Marquis Tavern, which simultaneously won loads of awards, best gastropub in the UK and best Sunday lunch in the UK, and got a Fame Ashler review, which was the heading was the A to Z of getting it wrong. That was quite harsh. Not even our worst review ever, but still it's quite a bad review. So we had those three things, and then we opened Hawksmoor, and that house of cards was kind of fueled mostly by debt that was easier to get before the financial crisis of 2008.
Okay, I want to talk about
Does this feel like I'm talking about like the 1950s?
It does actually.
Like, oh my God, this is
not
so
gonna
long
lie.
ago.
I'm like, what is he on about? When was this? No, I'm kidding. It wasn't. I was alive and well. You're not that much older than me. So debt. Do you believe that there is something as stupid as healthy debt, or does a business always have a little bit of debt?
No, I mean a business doesn't need to have a little bit of debt. I mean, any of us will have talked very occasionally to someone who owns a business and says something infuriating like, "It just has no debt. We just take the cash, pay ourselves every year, and we have no debt." I'm like, "Oh my God, you genius!
I know.
How are you doing this? It's so clever."
In the Thames.
There is healthy debt. I mean, healthy debt is broadly just debt that you can afford to repay that you take out in order to make more money. That's healthy debt that kind of makes the economy go round. Debt that you can't afford to pay that you've taken out for a reason that loses you more money is not good debt. The difficulty is you kind of don't really know in advance which is which.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess
which is why people tend not to lend people lots of money.
That's the romanticizing of restaurants. Like, when you're so far deep in, like, let's talk about Green and Red, because did that end well? You were saying about this house of cards.
That lost money, but I think also got bought by someone. So we made a overall loss, but got bought by, because we got the site for free with a new lease, and we sold the lease. And that didn't quite cover the losses of that intervening 4 and a bit years, but it wasn't too far off. So it was like, think of it as an expensive degree in business.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a cheap degree in business. I don't know, actually, overall. So it was kind of, it was that. It wasn't disastrous, but it could have been if someone hadn't bought them, which now I think is quite difficult. Like if you decided to sell your restaurant because it wasn't working, because ours wasn't working. What mad person would buy that restaurant?
A mad person will buy them. Like they do. People are still buying them.
Okay, you shouldn't say that on this podcast, by the way.
You should buy it.
At some point, you might want to sell your restaurant, and they're going to be like, "Oh, there's a mad person, some idiot trying to buy the restaurant."
They're not mad. Okay, so you have this like a house of cards, as you've explained it. Green and Red gets bought by some mad person. You sold the bar. You have the pub still. Where did this idea for Hawksmoor then come from?
So, just to kind of time-wise, Green and Red 2005, Pub 2006, Hawksmoor 2006. We opened 3 restaurants in 9 months, which is worth noting. We have never done since. Like even now, when there are 1,500 people working here and we're really good at this, not flawless, but still really good at this, we would never think, oh, I wonder if we should just bang out 3 completely different restaurants in 3 months. Absolute madness. Anyway, that's what we did. Hawksmoor kind of came from something which I'll come back to, but we kept those 4 things together until 2008. We sold the Red Church, and then we kind of got rid of the other 2 things almost exactly as at the time that Hawksmoor 7 Dials opened in 2010. So for 4 years, there's this weird, like, we owned a few things with Hawksmoor kind of paying for the failures of the other things.
Yes.
And then only from 2010, we're like, okay, this is just what we do now. We just do this. And Hawksmoor, I've kind of given 2 answers in the past for where the idea for Hawksmoor came from, and they both have some truth to them, but they're not the whole truth. One of them is some story about, like, you know, we grew up around food and drink, and Hugh's, I didn't mention earlier, but Hugh's grandparents and his great-grandparents were all butchers, and we'd grown up around good meat as well. And there was a moment in the early noughties where, like you said earlier, like, British restaurant reputation wasn't great, but British beef reputation wasn't great. All the steakhouses that existed were kind of like Argentinian disco, or like American old-fashioned, or cheap and cheerful Australian, something like that. There was nothing that was like, I mean, we invented all this stuff, you know, chop houses and great beef and breeds, and nothing celebrated British. And we travelled all around the world, and we'd been to a lot of different places, and we'd been thinking about steak and tried different steaks from all over the place. And we just wanted to do something that kind of felt authentically London and British and celebrated British meat and all that kind of stuff. And that's true. It is also true that we didn't have any money whatsoever, and we took over a failed Turkish restaurant that had a rabata grill, you know, one of those charcoal grills. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't afford to change the kitchen or do anything, really. We just had a lick of paint and some new tables and chairs, and whoop, we're a steak restaurant. And we based the whole thing around that one grill that we inherited from the Turkish restaurant. And which, by the way, if you walked into the kitchen upstairs, you'd see an exact replica that we have built every restaurant of that.
Would
Turkish
you? Because, like, that is amazing. This is, like, exactly why I wanted to do this podcast. I think people need to hear these stories. Like, but, like, would you advise anyone who was opening a restaurant that, like, it's okay to just work with what you've got? If you really want to do this restaurant, big borrow and steal, walk into a place, that's what the equipment you have, build a concept around it? Or would you say in this day and age you have to be quite organized and know?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The thought of kind of going in and just coping with what you've got, I suspect for every story that is like, oh, and then look at this steak restaurant empire that just emerged from, we inherited a Turkish grill, is one story in what, like 1,000? Most people are like, yeah. Oh my God, I opened this restaurant and it was, you know.
But then you also have the stories where people spend thousands and millions of pounds on equipment, and then they fail.
The thing that often gets me is I walk around someone's new restaurant, and I'm like, oh my God, you've spent so much money here. There is, in my head immediately, I'm like, there is no chance ever that you'll pay this back, even if you're profitable. Yes. It'll never work. I mean, there was one. I've got one restaurant in my mind which I won't name because of the
name it.
Well, it was called L'Anima. Do you remember it?
Yes.
It was sort of in that weird bit between Shoreditch and the city, and I went around that, and I really, really liked the chef. And Richard Vines showed me around, who was an incredible critic, and I was like, oh my fucking God, they've spent so much money. Like, it must have cost in the north like 5 million quid or something. Yeah. And the deal was, well, once you've paid back the investor, then you get the money. I'm like, but you're never, ever going to make £5 million. It's impossible. The best will in the world, you might make 300-400 grand a year here. What we spent 5 million quid for? Anyway, so there is also something. I mean, that there are a number of people who come and see me sometimes with like, oh my God, I'm thinking of doing this thing in restaurant business. What do you think? And you also know that my usual starting point is, all the reasons you think it's a good idea. Why don't I just be the boring guy who says why I don't think it's a good idea?
And it's always very helpful.
Sure.
But I don't always listen.
Ever. And like at the heart of all of it is just there's this real tension, I think, in the restaurant industry between, on the one hand, the thing that we've talked about so far, which is, oh my God, I love restaurants and I'm passionate about them. I like people and I like food and I can create this magical environment, and all the things that go into doing that over the years, right? Which is kind of like this insane intensity and passion and whatever that people are all drawn to the industry for. And on the other hand, boring commercial reality. Which is, you know, in the States, everyone calls it the restaurant business. I'm in the restaurant business. No one here uses that expression. They say I'm in the hospitality industry. In the States, I'm in the restaurant business. Restaurants is a set of skills. Business is a set of skills. And you have to be good at both of them. And that are not always the same thing, right? People who are great at restaurants are not always the same people who are great at business, and vice versa. And it's really hard. And that little thing of like, I mean, what we've just described with Lanimar is the concept of return on investment. Already everyone in your listening to your podcast has stopped listening now and checked out and doing something else because I said return on investment. But like, how much money did you put in? How much money did you get out? Is that worth it? Bearing in mind how risky the whole thing is. That's the simplest question. And I think that's the number one learning I've had. You sent me a pre-question, right? And the pre-question was, what do I wish I'd known earlier that I didn't? And really, it's that tension and how you make that work. And I don't regret any of the like mistakes we've made, which were an unbelievable number. I'm sure we still make them. But I wish I'd known that earlier, like how the business part of the restaurant business works, because a lot of people in restaurants don't.
Do you think still, even in this day, like new restaurateurs who are opening places, have you seen like a shift at all?
Yeah, of course there's been a shift, because you can't, like when I started, going back to that thing I said about like the tragedy of restaurants, you could start and fail for a long time. You could be just good at restaurants and you could probably eke a living out of your restaurant. And now you can't. You have to be, and if you have an independent restaurant, the list of things that you have to be good at is unbearable. You have to be good at restaurants, of course, and all the things that go into that. But like, you have to learn how to be good at marketing. You learn how to be good at compliance. You have to learn how to be good at like the basics of accounting every week. You have to learn how to be good at HR law. You have to, oh my God. And to some extent, you know, whatever, 20, 30 years ago, you had to be good at restaurants. You had to be good at cooking food. I mean, I met chefs 15 years ago who were really successful, who were still like, yeah, you take the protein on the dish and you times that by 4. That's how you make restaurant margins work. And that was really their extent of their knowledge about business.
Yeah.
And it's not like that at all now. So of course it's moved on, but still, I often talk to people and think like the level you're at and the level you need to be at to really make this successful is different. It's hard.
It's so hard.
It's really hard.
Can you talk about your relationship with Hugh? Because working with friends in business obviously can be very challenging.
Yeah.
You're having tough money conversations, you're in each other's pockets, maybe you're disagreeing. Have you ever had like any sort of bit of a fallout?
I think we've had 3 in 20 years. One of them was before we opened the Red Church, ridiculously. There was a sign, like working out what the sign, this is now, this would never happen because the sign is so clearly the sort of thing that Hugh would think about, right?
Yes.
And not the sort of thing that I would think about at all. He does like design and food and he's really in the detail of stuff and he's amazing. And he wanted to do one thing and I wanted to do another. I think we had a stand-up row about like the sign before we'd ever opened our first thing. And Hugh has said before that he won the argument and I ended up being right. Or maybe I won the argument. Anyway, whoever won the argument was the one who ended up being wrong. We had another argument, I can't remember when, but maybe fast forward like 15 years or something. Because we've known each other forever. We're kind of like brothers, right? More than sort of friends. We've known each other for 38. Doesn't sound like it's possible. 38 years. But he's introvert and he's very details focused and I'm a bit more extrovert and he's interested in some things and I'm interested in completely different things and we don't even really we don't enter each other's orbit in terms of the day-to-day work that much. anyways, and we don't argue that much, probably because we don't like confrontation. But there was one 15 years later. I genuinely have no idea what it was about. But I just remember sitting at my laptop, reading an email that was caps locks, like, fuck you, fuck you. And I probably replied with like, yo, you, fuck you. Literally absolutely no idea what it was about. And then the only other one I can remember us having was we had an argument, a small argument, like a kind of more like a marital kind of argument where you don't start shouting at each other and sending each other caps locks emails, but you sort of go quiet. We both went quiet, but we're about to do a 3-hour drive in this car, and we listened to. I was like, okay, this is unbearable. I'm going to put on the Joe Rogan podcast with the guys who run Joe Beef in Montreal, right? Which is like, we both love Joe Beef in Montreal. 3 hours where they talk mostly about eels. We just had this ridiculous silent drive listening to eel chat. So most of the time it is great. Or we've just got this really good accommodation of like spheres of influence and what we do and we're good at challenging each other, I think. Just that's not good enough. We can listen to the other one say it in a way that's sometimes more difficult to listen to other people say. But yeah, 3 times in 23 years, we've written caps lock emails to each other.
I mean, that's pretty intense, caps lock emails. Who apologizes first? Or is there no apology? It's just
I don't know.
Oh, let's move on from this.
No, I think probably both of us would be like,
all right,
just like after a couple of days, be like, oh, sorry, I was a bit of a dick, sorry. I think we still live 2 roads apart from each other now in Southeast London. So we're both pretty nice and pretty non-confrontational. So like it isn't that difficult to get over an argument.
Is there anything that you've ever disagreed on that ended up being like a massive success, where you were like, no, I don't think that's going to work, and then actually, either of you?
Not that we've disagreed with each other on, but actually we're sitting in something that both of us thought was a bad idea.
You're sitting in one right now.
Yeah, so we're obviously sitting in Hawksmoor Wood Wharf. Hawksmoor Wood Wharf, if you can't see it, but is a 14,500 square foot floating restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. So there is somewhere on the internet a video of them sailing this thing in to the wharf on a tugboat, and we stood over there in the middle of COVID looking at it, and the point was that we were going to, someone was offering us to kind of open this new restaurant, and we came in. We've stayed here for like half an hour, and bear in mind, like it was wasteland. Canary Wharf was a wasteland. I mean, and also, if you've been around for a while, Canary Wharf's reputation was like the city of London, but without the soul of the city of London. It wasn't kind of what it is now. And we both went, no, this is a terrible idea. I don't think we should do this at all. And we left. And the guy who works for us who put the thing together and was like, go and have a look at it. It's like, you are so wrong. Go back and look again. So we went back and looked again, and we were kind of like, okay. Anyway, for whatever reason, we kind of convinced ourselves. Literally the day I walked in, I was like, oh my God, it's like the best restaurant ever. And I think it's our busiest restaurant in the UK.
Is it? I was going to ask, which one's your busiest?
I mean, this one, because it's so big, it's the busiest. But yeah, it's been like wildly successful, and I love it. But yeah, we both stood there and went, no, this is not the right thing to do. That's how clever we are. We know exactly what we're talking about.
But actually, it brings us very smoothly on to the fact that you said someone put this idea together for you, because the people that you guys have hired and surrounded yourself with have always been a huge talking point for Hawksmoor. You have people who have worked for you for a very long time, and people who leave Hawksmoor always leave very happy when they go off to work somewhere else. They just wanted maybe a change or to evolve.
Not always, but yes, many times.
But many, I would say more times than not. Can you talk about like your people culture and where does that come from and who has inspired that? And I guess maybe some like key things that a small independent restaurant could probably take on board to help their own team.
So, I mean, I think some of the things that went for us really, really early, some of it was luck, some of it judgment, was like, we knew very early on that we weren't very good at most things in restaurants. So there's no job in Hawksmoor that I could go and do, or Hugh could go and do better than the person who does it. We're just, like, we're not bartenders or chefs or on the floor. Like, you go into a restaurant and you're like, I could probably do that job better, but we can't. And actually that's been great for us because we've never really got in people's way. We've just tried to work out, you know, how do we describe what we're trying to achieve here? Or how do we make this person really happy? Or how do we put enough structure so that 300 people can do a job like this one? Rather than that kind of, if I was doing that, it'd be better. And that, if I was doing it, it'd be better, I think is a problem for a lot of people because the tendency is to drop down and do it. And then you're not doing your job because plausibly the only two jobs that we can do better than anybody else are in fact our jobs. So the more time we're doing someone else's, the less time we're doing our own. And then who's doing ours?
But then what, asking for a friend, what if the needs of the business require you to step in?
Of course that, like, no one is working at their level all the time. Partly because sometimes the business needs to, partly because it's more fun, right? Sometimes it's more fun to just, you know what, I'm just going to roll up my sleeves and do Friday night service. I'm going to be the one that's on the pass because we'll do 20% more covers because I am willing to push it and push it and push it, and I'll do the adrenaline and I can talk to people, and if I say now, people react. Not that that's me, obviously, but that might be you.
Yeah.
It's fun. But if it's becoming a regular thing, then you've got a problem because you're not supposed to be doing that job. You're supposed to be doing your job.
Yeah.
And I found that difficult in the past. I found it difficult about, like, there was always a kind of a bit of thing in my head of kind of people knew who I was when we were smaller, like they knew I was Will, and we talked to each other like Natalia Will talked to each other, like as people. And that was really important to me. And the bigger we got, the more difficult it became. But also a little bit, the harder I tried to make it work until someone said to me, no one really needs you to be Will. They just need you to be a good CEO of the company. And I was like, oh, it was such a sad thing to hear, but also, oh my God, that is totally true. They don't really care. They just need me to be good at my job and other people to be good at their job. And I think we've always been good at that. But in terms of, you said people inspired us, when we were getting started, I don't know when Danny Meyer wrote Setting the Table.
I want to say the late 90s, to be honest. Maybe early 2000s.
I think you're going too far. But anyway, it was probably...
It could have been 2000.
It was around the time that we were kind of establishing ourselves, maybe. And we'd have read it, you know, a lot. Yeah. And he's always had a thing which says, this isn't quite how he phrased it, but he's like, the customers isn't your first job. Your team is your first job. The customer are your team's first job, but your first job is looking after them. And I think we've always taken that really seriously, and we learnt it from him. And I think we learnt from other people the importance of having a really clear culture, a way of kind of saying, this is the kind of people that we are. And if you're very good at your job, but you are not the kind of people we are, you can't really work here. And we have some ways of kind of describing what that is at Hawksmoor. And it's not, as I say, it's not culty. It's a little bit. It's a little bit culty. But I kind of like that.
It's culture. It's not.
But there's a really strong culture at Hawksmoor.
You could say that about
which accommodates a lot of people. Yeah.
Like, you know, you have these amazing places that create a culture people want to attach to and feel safe. Like you were talking about that employee that you had at Guildhall. Yeah. You know, whose parents said, "Okay, fine, you can pursue a career in hospitality because you've created a safe working culture."
There was this strong period when maybe the hospitality industry was considered more toxic than it is now, where we would almost collect people who loved hospitality but were right on the edge of leaving it forever because they had been through too many toxic, abusive kind of employer relationships, and they sort of like, I'm just going to try Hawksmoor. And those people were like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. And those are often the people, we meet people who've been here for like 16 years. It was that kind of era when people came to us. Or the other thing that we were always really successful with is, we kind of talked about, there was an over-indexing of fine dining back in the day. If you wanted to be a serious hospitality person, you wanted to earn, career kind of money, be taken seriously, your parents would say, I understand why you work there. You worked in fine dining, right? And you were smart, and you wore a suit and a pin and pretended to have a French accent or something. And then those people who didn't like that, and demonstrably I am one of those people who don't like kind of looking all smart at work, came here and they're like, oh my God, I can be really good at my job. I can work somewhere where people, like, if I tell people that's where I work, they're impressed. There's a career path for me, but I don't have to fundamentally not be me. I don't have to kind of put on a show of formality or whatever. I can just turn up and be myself. And I think those two things in the early days, coupled with like a genuine desire to try and work out how to look after people and make them happy, was kind of like the number one foundation of Hawksmoor.
Very good answer.
You're getting emotional now. You're kind of like, you're welling up a little bit. Yeah. Try some food?
I would love to. I thought you'd never ask. Oh my goodness. What have we got here?
These are old spot belly ribs, scallops.
Oh, I love a scallop. Thank you. Are these signature dishes of Wood Wharf or of Hawksmoor?
No, these are like Hawksmoor classics.
Hawksmoor classique.
It's funny, Hugh's just really obsessive about all sorts of things, ingredients and provenance and all that kind of stuff. And I, like, when I look at things, I just see stories. Like, to me, that is a story of Hugh's incredible preponderance for like iterating stuff.
We're looking at the ribs at the moment.
Yeah, so he gave me this poster once called, which just said done is better than perfect, which in his way is a joke because he doesn't believe that at all.
No.
He has no concept whatsoever that done is better than perfect. He's always like, I think we could make that idea better. And we're like, Hugh, sometimes we've got to just say, okay, we're doing it now, time to go. He's like, oh, but we could just make it a little bit better. And these things, honestly, he's constantly like, oh, I think we could, what if we added one more spice? What if they must have iterated about 1 million times. So that's been on for, if not day one, the best part of 20 years. And then these.
The scallops.
Yeah, the scallops. The scallops with white wine and tarragon. And so in 2012, we opened Air Street, and we kind of said, okay, what if Air Street, as well as trying to be the best steak restaurant in London, could also try and be the best seafood restaurant in London? And how would we do that? And we'd met Mitch Tonks, who's now one of my favourite people in the whole world, and he has this restaurant in Dartmouth in South Devon called the Seahorse, and I love it. And at the time when I'd gone down there, whatever it was, 13, 14 years ago, they were just cooking seafood the way we cooked beef, right? They just sourced the best stuff and cooked it simply over charcoal. That was kind of their vibe. I was like, oh my God, that's what we do. And they also, like, they had underneath the banquettes, they can lift the banquettes, and that's where they kept storing. They stepped all their charcoal. I was like, oh my God, that's what we do in the first restaurant. Anyway, and kept in touch with him. And this dish is a seahorse dish, really, the scallops dish. Except that now, when people go into the Seahorse, they're like, "Oh my God, this is the Hawksmoor dish."
Sure, Mitch loves that.
Yeah, it's like my mum, who for a long time I was just Fiona's son. Oh, you're Fiona's son.
And now
a lot she's like, "Oh, you're Will's mum." But yeah, try something.
Okay. Oh, there's wine.
Best Monday ever.
Seriously, this is the best Monday ever.
I also think that's the way. One of the signs that someone's a proper restaurant person.
Wine?
No, I mean, obviously wine. Is how much they appreciate lunch over dinner.
I love lunch.
Like everyone, restaurant people eat lunch and drink at lunchtime. Civilians
I like a long
have dinner and drink
lunch.
at dinner time. No one who works in restaurants is like, oh, let's go out for dinner.
No.
Always lunch.
They're like, should we go for
Yeah.
lunch? And lunch starts at, 1,
Yeah.
and it ends at like 10 p.m.
Well, so going back to Mitch, Mitch has this saying that is written on the back of menus at Hawksmoor. At the Seahorse, which says something like, a good lunch starts at 1 and finishes on Friday in Monte Carlo.
Yes.
And I've always liked that thought so much, like, oh, such a great. And then I was like, we should do it. We didn't quite do it, but what we ended up doing was 4 of us went for lunch at Noble Rot, and the rule was
Which one?
the original, Lamb's Conduit Street. The rule was lunch starts at 1. You have to bring an overnight bag, your passport, and an exceptional bottle of wine. So everyone turns up to this lunch with an exceptional bottle of wine, and I had brought Mitch, a bit like Jeremy King actually, is obsessed with the book The Dice Man,
Okay.
which is where Luke Reinhardt makes decisions with the dice. So we wrote down like 2 lists of 6 cities, and then just rolled the dice for, okay, so we're going to Paris from list 1, Bilbao from list 2. That's what we did. We then just, like, while we're having lunch, booked Eurostar, and then a flight the next night to Bilbao, and then a flight back from Bilbao. And then we wrote down, like, okay, write 6 restaurants in each city, which had to be like, there had to be a 3-star Michelin one in there. There had to be like a small, nice little independent. They had to be quite different. So we wrote 3, rolled the dice, went to that restaurant, rolled 3, wrote 6, went to the restaurant in Bilbao, and had what became known as Passport Lunch. And if you go into the Seahorse, the menu from Passport Lunch with all of the lists and the like stain, that kind of like brilliant wine glass red wine stain that gets on anything and looks amazing. All over it, this original Noble Rot menu, signed by us all,
When was
is
this?
framed. It was in January 2020, so it was like
January 2020.
On Eurostar, one of them was like, there's this thing happening in like China and maybe a little bit in Italy. I don't think anything is going to happen. I think this is going to be fine. Great, we'll all be fine then. So yeah, it was like just before COVID.
We were not fine.
It wasn't fine.
You have, I think you said before, 1,500 employees. How was COVID for you?
I mean, obviously not great. But there were bits of it, I know this sounds stupid, there were bits of it that I kind of liked. There were lots and lots of horrible things and really difficult decisions, and closing restaurants was awful. But like I remember thinking, it's a stupid expression, but like, we had a good war. Such an English expression. We had a good war. Did you have a good war? I had a good war. In a country obsessed with Second World War. But like, lots of the things that we did, I think, ended up being the right thing to do. Obviously we did all the Hawksmoor at home stuff, everyone did that. But I don't know, when we came back, all the decisions that we were able to make, which was lucky, right? Because fortunately we had cash in the bank when COVID hit, which was the whole ball game, right? If you had cash was oxygen, and if you could survive, then you'd be okay. We were big enough we could borrow some money, so we were okay. But as a result, all the decisions that we were able to make were the right decisions for customers. So do you remember there was this like weird period, I used to think, where restaurants were kind of saying to customers, you owe it to us to come back.
Yeah.
You have to behave in this way because we need you. I was like, what are you talking about?
Well, there was that.
We're restaurants. That's the entire point.
Yeah.
Is the only reason that we exist is to do something for other
eat
people.
out to help out.
It has to, yeah, but it has to be for other people. Like, you're not helping us, we're helping you. And in this particular case, we're just trying to provide you with somewhere that you come back after COVID and go like, oh my God, it's so nice being back somewhere and it's open and people are nice to me. Like, that's the whole ball game. So we only exist for that, and none of this like, you owe us. No, we owe you, that's it. And I remember thinking that was a really, really big part of our success over COVID.
I'm just digging into this scallop here, which is absolutely phenomenal. Question about your mum. Has she ever reviewed a Hawksmoor?
She hasn't written a review of Hawksmoor. Although when she puts stuff on her Instagram, she's like, I just want to flag this as my son's thing, so I'm not trying to, whatever, glaze. I'm not trying to glaze my son. But there was this period I remember really clearly. So my mum and Hugh's mum, in quite different ways, every time they came into the restaurant, would just let us know the things that they thought could have been better. And obviously, by the way,
Such a mum thing to do.
Well, it's a restaurant thing to do, right? If you come to my restaurant, I'd ask you, what could be better?
I wouldn't tell you that.
Yeah, by the way, I wouldn't the other way around either, but that's a whole different story. But Hugh would, because he wants to help. Well, his basic philosophy is, if something could be better, please tell me and I will try and make it better. Whereas it makes me feel sad.
Do you think, I think people feel insulted sometimes when you tell them?
Oh, this is me and Hugh's conversation, is like, when restaurateurs say to you, what do you think? What do they actually mean? Because Hugh thinks they mean, if anything could be better,
great.
tell me. And I think they just mean like,
tell me it was amazing.
I like Hawksmoor, I like you guys, I'm right on the edge of divorce, I've mortgaged my home, I haven't had a day off for 3 months, and I'm working 90 hours a week and bleeding out my eyeballs. If you said something nice now, it would help for about 7 seconds. What do you think? And then Hugh's like, well, actually, I did think that the something could be a bit less whatever, and I didn't think, I'm not sure if the waiter's French tuck was quite the right thing. And I'm like, it's not that one.
Don't you think that restaurants can just always be better? Like, we can always be doing better. And no service is the same. And you have a bad day, then you have a good day, you have a bad week, you have a bad year.
But that is also like...
Or a good year or a good week.
Restauranting is constantly trying to be better. If you're not doing that all the time, that is the fundamental thing of constantly trying to be better. So anyway, our parents would come in and say, this is how you could be better. And obviously, when your mum tells you the ways you could be better, you just revert to being a 15-year-old boy. Shut up. So in the end, actually...
It's good.
What we worked out was Hugh's mum would write to me and say, this is how it could be better. And my mum would write to Hugh and say, this is how it could be better. Which completely took the sting out of all of it. There's no problem whatsoever. Great, yeah, I agree with you. So much easier.
So much easier.
Than having your mum tell you it's not quite good enough. But she's super supportive, my mum. She's been great.
We touched on it a little bit earlier about how, you got Britain, inventor of these chop houses and beef and, maybe not inventor, but like the provenance of your meat and fish is such an important part of the story of Hawksmoor. Where do you source things? Is that a huge thing? Did he spend like countless hours sourcing where you wanted to get this from? So at the very beginning, it really would have been a Hugh thing. I mean, Hugh can delve into things. So Hugh has ADHD, so he can either be quite difficult to focus, or he can focus like no one has ever seen on the same thing. And he's obsessed with this kind of stuff. So, if it's pork or beef or scallops or whatever, or vegetables, he'll go into it for like an incredible amount of intensity. And we, in the old days, we would taste all sorts of things and we'd constantly be looking for better and, whatever. If he was here, he could tell you about the pork, or he'd talk about disco scallops and how, like, when you shine a certain light on them, they kind of bounce into these kind of cages. Or he'd tell you about he's got this weird habit of he goes to a lot of farms for the beef, obviously. Yeah. He takes a trowel with him everywhere he goes, and every farm he'll like dig into the earth where the cows graze and see what is in the earth. Because he wants to see like life. He wants to see, worms and bugs and stuff. And sometimes you go to a farm and it's sort of like dry and arid and there's no life in the soil, and you kind of think, actually, so, he's obsessive in a really great kind of restaurant romantic kind of way. And then over time, as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, the questions stay the same, right? How do you get brilliant produce with brilliant stories from the right people at the right price, so that you can, give customers things at the right price? But you have to scale it. So now we've got this guy called Phil who does an incredible job, but we've also, we've got, I could give you
reams and reams and reams of written material on. This is our standard for beef. This is how we think about pork. This is how we think about procurement in general. This is how we think about pricing. Because you're just trying to work out how to take some of that kind of magic that makes it work in the first place and do it at the scale that you are. And I think there is something in restaurants. I'm sorry, by the way, it's such a classic thing because you've asked me about ingredients and I've ended talking to you about how you deal with things at scale. Boring again.
No, not boring, important, but
there's something I think in restaurants where people who are, we talk about the restaurant business and people who are into restaurants more than business sort of think that like the way you do things at scale is kind of anathema to magic, which we all recognize as a thing in restaurants. And I don't think that really. I think, the more you can kind of capture some of that magic and work out how to teach it to more people and make it work at scale, because 100% what works for you when you've got one restaurant is not the same as when you've got two, and when you've got two is not the same as when you've got 10, and when you've got 10 in the UK is not the same as when you've suddenly got them in Ireland and the US and whatever. It's different. The questions are the same, but the answers of how you do it are different. And how you kind of build that up so that whether you're having that dish in Chicago or Dublin or London, it's awesome, I think is really, really interesting and challenging. And in any one restaurant, they ought to be able to tell you, let me tell you about the pork or the beef or the scallops or the fish or whatever. But the answer's different in all the different restaurants, but the how we do it, what the philosophy is behind it all is the same.
scaling. You beg, borrow, and stole to get Hawksmoor off the ground. You end up being quite successful. You're doing quite well. You open... How many restaurants did you open, a year?
We've almost only ever opened one restaurant a year.
One a year.
Well, there have been times we've opened two, but one has been more normal.
Okay. When were you we need to get some investment?
To go from the first one to the second one, we needed to get investment, i.e. we couldn't afford to open the second one without an injection of cash. So we went out and spoke to we got someone to help us, went out and spoke to a load of people, put together a fancy looking deck. And we eventually got some money from a small number of wealthy-ish people. Mm-hmm. Nicely, actually, the main one just did the whole thing as a charitable foundation. He just had sort of like an endowment fund where all the money went to charities in Africa. And that got us from 1 to 4. We opened Seven Dials, Guildhall, Eyre Street. Some fairly big...
I remember when Eyre Street opened. I think I actually went there for a manager due when I was working for Riding House Cafe. We went there. Great cocktails. And we, so we got that money in, and then at that point, we didn't need money in terms of, to grow. We were making enough money then to open one restaurant a year, but. Well, as you know, if people invest in your restaurant, put money into your restaurant, they would quite like at some point to take money out of your restaurant. That is. I hate that part.
That is the awkward reality of people investing in your restaurant.
I only have one investor. He only has 5%, but he's a great investor in that. He lets me just get on with it. Obviously, he has a very small amount, but every time he sends me a text message, I'm like, what's this going to be about? And usually it's just a photo of him on holiday, which. Mm-hmm. It's lovely for him. But yeah, I'm worried about that day that he's like, so how about that money?
And to be honest with you, that should be a question that he asks you at some point.
Yeah. I ask myself that all the time. So
people talk to me about trying to get investment in their restaurants quite often. And I always say the same thing. You also ask me a question, which is what advice would you give to someone else starting their restaurant? And my advice almost always to someone starting their restaurant, I might have even given it to you, is start with the end in mind. At some point, this will end. That's plausible that you're going to say to me, it will end when I retire and my children take over the restaurant. And wouldn't that be lovely and romantic?
Well, that you assume that I'm having children.
And that is what, by the way, that's, Mitch's son at the Seahorse is taking over the restaurant. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch. But that's not how most things
I just want to say, if you can't see this, but I've just been brought The béarnaise sauce.
extra sauce.
No, béarnaise sauce, because I dream about this sauce, particularly the Hawksmoor one.
Great.
I was
That
asked
sounds like
this.
a healthy dream.
I was just like, they were like, what do you eat when you go to Hawksmoor? I said, béarnaise sauce. I love a béarnaise. Okay, I'll put it in the middle so you can share a little bit
Very
of
kind.
it. I'm a very nice person.
And so it's not going. So it may end that way, but it seems unlikely. It may end with failure. That's a realistic end to many a restaurant, including ones that I have opened.
We haven't even talked about
But if it's
Foxlow.
going to end in a different way, how? You should think about that when you set it up, right? Is it going to be, well, do you know what? I am going to just take a step back, and the restaurant's going to make money. It'll have a general manager, and I'll just take dividends from the restaurant all the time. Is it going to be, I want to work in it for as long as possible? Are you going to try and grow it and sell it? And if so, is that thought actually realistic? What is the end? No one thinks about the end, I think, or very few people think about the end when they start. But you should, and especially you should when people give you money. Because really, that is, how am I going to get the money back? I know it's restaurants, right? So, of course, some restaurant investment is either, I know you very well and love you, therefore I want to put money into your restaurant, parents investing in their child's restaurant or something. Or it's, I love restaurants and I would just love to be involved in their orbit in some way, and I'm willing to kind of pay to play a little bit in this restaurant thing. But most people would like to get some money back.
Yeah.
How's that going to happen? So when we got investment from private equity, the people, including the guy with the Charitable Foundation for Africa, got money back. Then they did very well out of the whole thing. So that was important. And, at some point, private equity investors will want to get their money back, and we will have to do that again. And I think that's just a nice, normal part of restaurants that I don't have any problem with. But no one in restaurants, or very few people in restaurants, talk about, are you going to make money from restaurants? It's almost considered
like taboo.
Slightly dirty,
Yeah.
and definitely taboo. I remember talking to Russell Norman before he sadly died, but a long time before. And I was asking about this restaurant we were going to take over, and it was massive. And bearing in mind, the restaurants we have are pretty big. This
Yes.
was massive. And I was like, do you think people are going to be a bit like, oh God, it's so gauche and nakedly commercial and whatever. He's like, what are you talking about? Well, our job is we're supposed to make restaurants. That's how this whole thing keeps going. It's how everyone gets their jobs, how the farmers get paid. It's what's supposed to happen. It's the result of you doing a great job for customers.
Yeah.
I'm like, so stop worrying about that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, actually that's really good advice. This Longhorn, so we're 20 this year. Mm-hmm. So when we started Hawksmoor, 2006, we did what Hugh always refers to as like the World Cup of beef tastings. We'd have all of these things, and they were blind tasted, and there was, this was number 13, and somewhere else there was a little list of what 13 meant, if it was, what kind of cut it was and where it was from or whatever. And we did all these tastings, and kind of the winners went through to the next round. It was it's the sort of thing that like middle-aged white guys do when they're getting a bit over-obsessive with things. They turned it into some kind of like weird competition. And
You said it.
yeah. And anyway, the winner of the Beef World Cup was Yorkshire Longhorn. We bought it from Tim Wilson, who owned the Ginger Pig at the time. And they had there was these amazing farms up in Yorkshire, and we got all the Longhorn up there. Loved it. But obviously, over the years, we grew with him for a bit, and then we kind of got too big and we couldn't carry on doing it exactly that way. And actually now, if you eat steak at Hawksmoor, you eat, for the most part, all the things that we learned from that period of time, right? In terms of breeds, in terms of land, in terms of how cows should be raised, in terms of aging, whatever it is. We've got like a really long spec list, but broadly speaking, if you get beef at Hawksmoor, it's kind of Hawksmoor meat, right? We don't say this ever, but kind of, we've spent ages thinking about it, so you don't really have to. And
It is so good.
now, two things have happened as we've got bigger, or more recently, sorry. One is we've partnered with the Rare Breed Survival Trust. So now we work with the Rare Breed Survival Trust to specifically get rare and heritage breeds named breeds on menus in all of our restaurants. So you can go into at any point and you'll see like, oh, there's some belted Galloway there or some Lincoln Reds in this restaurant or whatever. And it's sort of separate from the main Hawksmoor supply chain. And right now, because it's 20 years, we've been building up for a while to just having Longhorn on at all of our restaurants, which is the first cut that we ever did. And so, I mean, if you have this, to me, this is everything that like Hawksmoor steak should be. Absolutely delicious, fat, kind of a beefy flavor. We're eating ribeye, kind of like a really sort of beefy, earthy flavor.
Yeah.
Charcoal crust.
It's very distinct.
Really distinctive. And I think this is unlike what you eat in most other steak restaurants.
I would agree.
But amazing, particularly the fat. You didn't eat the fat,
I'm
and
going to
that
eat
was a
the
mistake.
fat. No, because I just watched you do that. Now I want to copy you.
You should copy me. And you know, that's something that I really love about Hawksmoor, which is, just in some ways, what we're doing is relatively simple. In some ways, restaurants are really simple, right? Serve some nice food and drink in a room with nice lighting and nice music and nice people. But it's hard. And you know, just doing steak and chips sounds incredibly easy, but it's hard. Like every little bit you've got to think about and try and work out how to do it all. And I think that Longhorn's a really good example of just a million small details end up in one really, really good, simple thing.
At the end of every episode of Staying Open, we ask 2 questions. You have hinted at these in our lovely interview, which thank you very much.
I have ruined this segment already in our interview.
Everything.
You're welcome.
No, we like to ask, what's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew then? And I know that you touched on it earlier, but maybe if you could talk about it once more.
Yeah, the thing I feel like I wished I'd known is that you have to work as hard on the business part of the restaurant business as you do the restaurant part. And it's really, really hard, but that's how you make it all work, right? That's how everything is sustainable. Sustainable restaurants make money, employ people, buy things from farmers and contribute to the economy, and that is great. And it's hard work, but you have to put a lot of work into that part of it, not just into the customers being super happy part.
I'm glad that you said that. I'm learning that on the job. And then the last question that we like to ask is, what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who wants to open a restaurant?
Well, earlier I said you should start with the end in mind, but maybe a different one. I used to live next to the trombone player from the London Symphony Orchestra. And you'd always hear like boom, 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 coming out of his house because he'd give lessons to people. You know, he was the country's preeminent trombonist. And he used to come round, he enjoyed a glass of wine. And he was saying that he gets asked all the time, like, oh, should I become a professional musician? And his answer was, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Unless you really can't think of anything else that you should be with your life. And I was like, actually, I kind of feel that with restaurants. Like, should you be a restaurateur? Absolutely not. Unless you really can't think of anything that you'd rather be than a restaurateur, in which case, yeah, do it. It's the most wonderful thing. But don't sort of do it because you feel you ought to, or because you kind of, you know, if it's in you, do it, and it's amazing. And I think that's probably the advice that I would give people starting.
That was so good. I'm gonna cry.
For the 10th time on this podcast.
Oh, I feel like it's in me. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
It feels crazy sometimes doing this job, but I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
No.
I actually really might cry, so can we go get a walk? Thank you so much for listening. This podcast exists to share the stories behind restaurants, the reality of building them, running them, and the passion to keep them alive. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can follow us at stayingopen.podcast for more conversations, behind-the-scene moments, and upcoming guests. I'm Natalia Ribbe, and this has been Staying Open. One thing I've learned from running a restaurant is that it's very easy to spend all your time working in the business and never quite getting around to working on it. That's why I love what Square are doing. Square brings everything together in one place with one straightforward system of payments, point of sale, and funding. And with Square AI, Instead of digging through reports, you can simply ask questions like, what sold best this week? Or help optimize margins by asking, which are my top 10 most profitable items? Or even compare profit margin versus sales volumes for each item and get answers instantly. It's all part of what they call the Square stuff. And that helps keep your business running. The admin, payments, and point of sale tools. Square does the Square stuff, so you don't have to. And right now, they're offering up to £4,000 in free hardware to eligible businesses to get you started. Head to square.com to learn more.